I am Steve Stewart. I founded the Podcast Editors Club, and over here is the Mark Deal. He co-founded the Podcast Editor Academy. Welcome, Mark.
Welcome, Steve. Thank you for having me. We do a lot of live streams throughout the year. We do summits and virtual events, and this one, the survey, the editor survey results that we do annually. I think this is our 5th year running now. Is always well attended. Always well attended. I think out of all of our free live events, this one, beats it. Wow, I'm looking at the counter right now.
Yep.
People are joining because people want to know. People want to know, and I'm glad that folks are here because we've got questions. You've got questions, and that way we can explore those questions together and find out what the survey results mean to us.
Yes. We've been doing it 5 years. I think the first year I did it was just a question inside of the Facebook group, the Podcast Editors Club, and it wasn't really that in depth. I was able to come up with some averages, but that's all it was averages. What Mark has done with the results of what we got now is a little bit more helpful because we're seeing as an average from a whole bunch of people, not just what they're earning, but how much time does it take them to do it? Because you could earn $1,000, but if it takes you a month to do it, maybe you could be a little more efficient, a little more profitable.
And that's our hope.
Yeah. All right. Looks like we got some people showing up. Great. So we are going to start the reveal here. Mark, you want to start showing your screen?
I've got control of the arrow keys. I'll let you do the display.
All right.
As discussed. Here we go. 2023 Podcast Editor Survey Results. Don't you love it when people just read the slide out in front of you as if you couldn't read it yourself? Of course not. No. Of course not. No one does. Podcast Editor Academy, Podcast Editors Club, Podcast Editors Conference, everything, because we've got the granddaddy of podcast editing, Steve Stewart, here steering the boat. So, all right, let's dive into it.
Oh, he said it. Okay, dive in. If you're playing the bingo game, I got to get the bingo cards out to everybody. That would be one.
That would be one?
All right. Yep. And Brian Ensminger does love it. All right, slide number 1. All right.
I'm not going to do the can you see my screen because that would complete the bingo too early. And of course, I can see what you see. There we go. Survey results. So at the high level, this is across the last 5 years, right? Going back from 2019 when Steve did the I guess the very first survey result, and back about 2020, that's when we were like, hey, let me get a crack at it because we can do some really cool stuff with this. So he asked a question: how long does it take you to edit the audio of a 60-minute recording? And we're just talking about basic noise reduction, leveling, and then mix it down to MP3. We asked everyone how much you charge for that job, how long does it take you to do it, and then based off that, we just did some high-level math. Pretty simple. Just divide out the price by time in hours to come up with your hourly rate, because a lot of people think that way as far as like doing gig jobs. What's your rate? So one of the things we found in 2023 is people are charging less. And I think that may be because they're trying to fight inverse the inflation, maybe. I don't know. And I would love to hear your comments about that, why you think that is.
Yes.
Now, the time to edit is going down. And it's probably going to go down even more so in the next year, 2024, with all the new tools that are coming out. And then just dividing out all the individual, or calculating the rate for each individual and then averaging those out. The average hourly rate actually went up.
Yes.
Pretty big, $71. And as before, I like to state that the average hourly rate isn't just the average price divided by the average time. So all that variability adds or takes away from that average. And that's what you see here. And that's why our rate is going up in 2023. So congrats, the aggregate of everybody of increasing your rate. And it looks like a lot of people doing that by lowering the amount of time that they're working on it. And a few people, of course, the charts and graphs that we like to share are charging pretty well for their effort.
Yeah, I kind of like this chart seems confusing, but when you look at it in aggregate, yeah, prices overall on average went down on what we charge. But if we're spending less time working on each individual job, then maybe we can complete more jobs in a month, which makes our average rate go up. So would you rather spend 10 hours making the same amount of money as you would in 11 hours or 9 hours? Obviously 9 hours. So that's pretty cool.
And one thing I do want to point out here, and you might see a visual picture of it later, is there's some people that are charging about the same that they were before, but there's others that are charging a mixture of more money and doing it faster. And there's more people of that. So it looks like almost the population is starting to diverge. And that's one of the things that's pulling up the hourly rate. And of course, we're going to do our best to learn from that and how they do that. We're going to do it a little differently this year than what we've done in the past.
Yeah. Well, we have the answer anyway. Jennifer says she's bringing the average down.
No. I mean, we've got at least 50% of the Yetis here. The pocket. Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
So that's interesting.
This is one of the things that everyone loves to see as, what's going on? What's everyone doing? Where do I stack up? Where do I fit in this population of podcast editors? And one of the first things we asked is, what is your main DAW? And I'm surprised, perhaps not so much, to find out, and as people were putting in their qualitative statements in the notes, a lot of people use multiple DAWs. They'll start with one and then go to another. But yeah, they were really picking up what Steve is putting down on this question, what is your main DAW? And Adobe Audition, as always, is number one. Reaper has had a significant increase in market share.
I find that very interesting.
And also, conversely, Hindenburg has lost some market share. This could be due to a couple things. It could be because, of course, we've got Brian here, one of the leaders of the Hindenburg group. It could be just the observed population. Maybe we didn't, go in front of all the Hindenburg people as last year and say, "Hey, answer the survey." Or, as we've noted. Hindenburg just released 2.0 and they've changed their pricing model a little bit, more of a SaaS model. And Reaper has the one-time fee. So I think perhaps that's more palatable to people, especially in this economy.
But I'm noting the seventh one on that list.
Oh, Descript.
I mean,
first
Descript
time
popping,
ever.
Yeah, up at 5%. That's pretty strong. And with what they've been doing lately, it makes sense to me that they might be stealing some of that market share from the others.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I remember when we did the first Podcast Editors Conference back in 2020, Descript, they were a sponsor of that. And at the time, people didn't see them as a DAW. And that's both Steve and I asking, as well as people saying what they use. We had Ableton and a lot of others, but no one was mentioning Descript. Now we have a few more people saying that Descript is their main DAW. There's lots of others that are using it as a supplement, but not as a main DAW. So that's something.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next quarter.
Moving on to the next one. Cumulative experience editing and getting paid to do it. So one of the things you'll note here, especially looking at years past, is our podcast editor group or our audience here, our population, we are getting older. I'd say we're getting more experience. So if you look at that, we have fewer people coming into the podcast editing realm as far as just having started editing, and then more people are editing professionally. So basically the columns are shifting over a little bit. So as this survey ages 1 year, it looks like a lot of the population is moving from one chart or one Pareto block there to the next. So that's interesting. That basically it says primarily everyone inside the Podcast Editors Club is stepping along. There's not a lot of new people coming into the space. It could be good news. It could be bad news. Again, you take it the way you want it. I think the fact that you're here and learning from this probably puts you ahead of everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Good.
All right.
Good observation.
Something else, number of extra services. So Steve's asked the question like, hey, what else do you offer? And this isn't part of your base rate, but it's like, hey, do you do video editing? Do you do audiograms and things like that? And he's he asked the question, and so we put it down here how many extra services people are performing. And it looked like the average, I think, was around 4.5, 4.8, something like that. But you can again see the Pareto of how many people are the number of their extra services, and of course the extra services offered. People really like to see that. Who else is offering what I offer? Audiograms, sound bites, video shorts is by far number one. I think it's like 65%.
Yeah.
So about 2 out of 3 of you are doing audiograms, sound bites, and video shorts. Then there's coaching and consulting.
Which I think kind of goes hand in hand when you're working with a client. It's not the one-off, I don't want to insult Fiverr people, but it's no longer just they send me the audio and I do things. It's working together with your clients. That's why I think coaching and consulting kind of goes along with it almost by default.
Almost by default, but again, it looks like it's default by nearly half or a little bit more than half of the population. Not everybody does it. People are like, oh, give me the audio. I'll do it for you. Here you go. And I'll move on to the next. So
which actually I prefer.
Yeah. But again, we love learning from your insight. I think a lot of your clients would like to learn from your insight, Steve. And if you're an editor watching this live stream, your clients can benefit from your insight. Share some of the lessons learned from their other clients. So they can benefit from that information. All right. So before we go on to this next slide, we did things a little differently this year. In years past, I've done this regression analysis. I basically did some math and told the rate to predict itself based off of everything that you were telling us. And Steve also had a lot of extra questions for that in order to power that. But we made it simpler this year by asking fewer questions. And instead of doing regression analysis, what we did is we looked solely at the extra services offered. And we said, all right, what is the average hourly rate for the people that offer it and the people that do not? So let's take a look at that. Here we go. Extra services offered. So the bar is the rate without the service, and the dark green bar is the rate with the service. And of course, that blue bar in the background, that's a lot of B's. Blue bar in the background, that is the percentage of people. So of course, we got audiograms, sound bites, video shorts at the very top at 65%. And it looks like the average of all the people that did not perform that service was about $58 per hour. And those that do offer that service, their rate, again, just to do the basic job is more than that. Maybe it's okay. I think the bar is around 70. Okay. Again, this is meant to be a guide, and we can certainly give some of the numbers later.
Yeah, and I see some of those things like voiceovers. Obviously, voiceovers is not something that everybody can do. I'm not going to be able to do a voiceover because I mumble a lot. Website design, that takes a very specific skill, and obviously people who are offering that as a service and they're offering editing, I think they're offering other services. Mm-hmm. Well, they're offering fewer services, what you're saying. But they're doing website design and making some decent money.
Yeah, and that's something else. In years past, the regression analysis would balance a lot of factors to see, is it the number of services? If you offer every service, then does your rate really go up? Or are you just offering too many services, and because of that, your rate's going down? That's something that a regression did. But this analysis that we did to make it a little quicker for us, wouldn't be able to support that. But one of the ways to interpret this, Steve, if you can take our lovely videos, faces off of here, is look at this span of the difference between the rate with the service and the rate without the service. For example, podcast editors that offer guest interview and booking services, those that offer it, and it's only about 15% of those surveyed offer this service. Those that offer it have over $100 an hour, effectively hourly rate for their base job, and those that do not offer it are substantially less. So from here, you can look at if you wanted to add something, and again, not powered by regression analysis, but just by looking at the averages of those that do and those that do not. Guest interviews and supporting the booking for your clients, as well as story editing and design, and live recording, studio and remote. Those are probably the big swings, if those are some things that you could add to your repertoire. Of course, there's website design comes at a fourth, but that's almost I think that's kind of a bit of a different skill, but I have that skill. Some may not, but again, it's not as big of a swing learning how to do that and I think it's substantially different than editing audio, where doing story editing and design, maybe not so much. Guest interview and booking, probably not. You're thinking of processes.
See, I would think that story editing and design, that's a very specific skill. You are going to be charging more for that type of a gig. Of course, it's going to take you longer to do that too.
And not only that, but I think the reason it influences the base rate of the scope you planned out there, Steve, right? Just 60 minutes, basic level it, mix it down to MP3 and ship it. If you are a podcast editor that is offering story editing and design, you're not offering that base rate, that base job cheaply. Somebody's going to hire you, like, sure, but I'm a story editor and designer, so for this base stuff, my rate is higher, and I think that's what we're seeing here, and that's always been the assumption that we've done with some of these. I've seen a lot of good questions come in, and I really do want to get to these questions. We only got a couple more slides, and we'll have plenty of time to go over some of the questions. Mm-hmm. All right. Good. We've got one more. We asked people, hey, what are the number of active clients you have? So again, I help you see where you stack up. For example, 20% of you, 1 out of every 5 have between 6 to 10 clients. So good for you.
Yeah. It's a nice even spread. I like that.
Yep. Yeah, about 16, 17% of you just have one client.
We're going to take just out.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Let's
have. Bust that just. I got you.
Yes.
I think I owe Carrie $1 every time I say that.
Yeah. So that's interesting, because what that shows me, when we look at that graph and we see that the number above me is, 17% of people that responded have one editor, that means we're getting a nice sample size or variety of the sample sizes across the industry.
Yep.
But of course, I want more people to have the 6 to 10 or 10 above.
Exactly.
That's where I want people to have over Mark's head.
We're trying to. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm pointing 6 to 10 or greater than 10.
Yep. And then time spent editing. This is a question I think somebody came up with in the chat.
So time spent editing audio versus developing your business. So there's the breakdown. Nearly 30% of you are spending less than 10 hours editing your business, and less, or 80% of you are spending less than 10 hours. It could be no hours at all developing your business. So it's the whole E-Myth book, right? Working in or working on your business. That's essentially what that question asked. And there was no one that spends 30 plus hours a week developing their business, which I think
thank
makes
goodness.
sense. Right? Exactly. You're spending all your time working on it vice doing something that you are charging for, then you can develop the $0 all day long. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the inverse of that, editing, there is about 15% of those in the population that are editing audio 30 plus hours a week.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that next year we will include a question about editing video. I'm trying to figure out how we're going to make that happen without complicating things too much. We'll see if I can pull it off. But I mean, video editing is becoming a much bigger piece of this pie. So we'll be able to extrapolate a lot more.
I hope that video editing doesn't kill the podcast star. But, I had to go down
so
there.
True. So true.
I like spoken word. I like multitasking. So I think podcasts will always have a place, especially, with all the proliferation of TikToks and Reels and everything. And we found a little bit about that when we looked at our survey results last year when we were asking about social media usage. It looks like the more that's out there vying for your screen. And I've always said this, and please, editors, feel free to use it in your own copy on your website. Podcasting is the only way for your clients to reach their prospective customers, their prospective clients, when they are not looking at a screen. And I think that's the power of podcasting.
That's a clickable moment. Everybody take a picture of Mark on the screen and let's put it up on social media. All right.
Thank you, Steve.
Mark's got another slide. This is one that he's done every year, which is kind of confusing, but he'll explain it beautifully.
Yeah. So essentially out of the 118 responses that we got this year, and I calculate the average hourly rate, which as we said was about $71 an hour. So if you are above that, you're in that green zone. You want to be in the top left, right? You want to charge $1,200 for an hour's worth of work. That would be great. We didn't have anybody over there. That's why our logo is there. But that's the area you want to be. Now you don't want to be on the other side of that graph. You spent 8 hours on a project, but you only charged say like $50 for it. We did have one person that spent 8 hours on 60 minutes of the basic editing and charged $200. So for them, we're showing you this to challenge you, like, hey, pull up your rate or spend less time doing it. So if you're on the green side, you're beating the average. If you're on the orange side, you're less than the average. And now hopefully from this visual picture here, you can see why the average hourly rate across the entire population is different than just taking the sum of all the time and all the dollars, because there are some people that are high up there on what they're charging versus what they're putting in. Now that person that charges $1,200 an hour and they're putting 7 hours into it, good for them. And I bet those 7 hours are you're probably saving your clients not just 7 or 14 or 20 or 40 hours or 80 hours. I imagine the level of work that you're doing is well worth it. And that's something to keep in mind is, although you like to think of your hourly rate, you always want to increase your effective hourly rate. Keep in mind that the value you bring to your clients is much greater than what your hourly rate is. And if you can enunciate that in a way that they understand it, they're willing to pay you for it.
Yep. I want to bring up a question that Brian had asked in the chat or a comment. He thinks that 1 to 10 hours per week is too broad for business development. Going back to the slide about how much time you spend on your business instead of in it. For an editor working 40 hours per week total, that would be more than 20% of the work week on business development. It's hard to imagine any freelancer putting more than 20% of their work week into business development. Makes sense to me. An agency owner, yes, totally different.
I would agree with that. Yeah, we had that question just so we could keep consistent with the years past, but it would probably make sense to have the upper end, like, hey, do you spend 8 hours or more a week, and then to find out, or 10 hours or more, and then to find out, like, are you spending, 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week, and of course, 2 hours a day would be across a 5-day work week, assuming you don't work on weekends, is 10. So, yeah, I definitely do agree with you on that, Brian. We always, as we learn more, as Steve just mentioned earlier during the live stream, he wants to figure out a way to add video editing to the survey. But anytime we change it, we want to keep the heart of what's there. But I think that's a good one to where we could change it and find out a little bit more. And it's not going to change like that first screen, that first graphic. That's the one that everyone is used to seeing, like how much time, what are people charging, how much time are they spending on it, and what's the effective hourly rate.
Yep. And Brian added more. He said maybe 5 hours. Bands.
I'm thinking like 2 hour bands, right? 0 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, up to 10. Because that's basically, hey, do I spend an hour a week or do I spend 2 hours a day?
And Facebook users back, they say that assumes they're only working 40 hours per week. Imagine some freelancers are spending more than that. Mm-hmm. Yes, the question allows for up to 40. We're going to assume 40-hour work weeks in the question because if we open it up to any answer, it's going to be crazy. So. And maybe the question is kind of pushing us all to only work 40 hours a week instead of 56 on average like I do. But I get to work from home. And my wife has a part-time job she loves, so when she's gone and our daughter's moved out, okay. But yes, 40 hours a week.
Meanwhile, Steve has a hard time tracking me down on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And
I
then
applaud
weird
you for
days
that.
like today. Oh, thank you. Yeah, you come up with your own goals and work towards those goals. There was a few more questions in here. So I saw a Facebook user, and I do want to point this out because they were absolutely right.
Let's see who that is.
Where was it?
Is it this one, Mark? How many people responded?
Yeah. And
we
that
had
does
that on the
affect the
first slide.
averages, and that's very true. So we actually had fewer people this year respond to the survey than we did last year. So it's a smaller population. It was one of the reasons why we didn't do the regression analysis, because as the population gets smaller, it becomes trying to forecast a flying spaghetti monster. If anyone's seen those hurricane track prediction type things, so you're right. As you take data away from it, it would affect the averages. And that's why we always say, this isn't law, and in fact, this is really just a guide to let you know where you're at. And hopefully, Steve and I are going to propose a few questions, and hopefully, we did during this live stream, to challenge you in your thinking. Hey, I am worth more, and perhaps I'm worth even more than that if I were to change a couple things. In this case, we looked at services offered, and maybe it's. Who knows? Maybe it's the fact that you're offering those services. Maybe it's the fact that you talk in those terms of someone that offers those services that makes you more palatable. For example, guest interview and booking. To me, it says you understand the process of doing interviews. You understand how hard it is for the host to run an entire show. Not only are you going to cut out their umrahs, but you're going to help them in that production aspect with getting their interviewees, their guests, booked on the shows. Maybe you're facilitating the live recording. Who knows? But for example, that's another way you could look at that data and say, hey, what are some of the questions? What are some of the things that those people are probably saying on their website, on their copy, on their advertisements that I could put in mine to stand out from the crowd and be on that upper green side and not on the lower side?
It would be up. See, I'm doing it now. It would have been upper green side and not 7 to 8 hour green side.
Exactly.
Here, we'll put it back in.
There we go.
There we are.
There, I can do the, yeah. Ooh, look, there's my little, you want to be over here as
you have
this
your
little
mouse.
mouse goes. Yep. You want to be over on this side, and then around here is the average, and then that's towards the under average.
Yeah, and if we could go back to the first slide, Mark, would you be able to do that?
Sure.
Just take us back to that first, I'm sorry, the second slide. Semantics. Just to give everybody those, here, slideshow right there. Take your screenshot. We will make these slides available in the Podcast Editors Club newsletter.
Yep, every year, always do.
And on the blog post for this this live stream where it's living on our website, the Podcast Editor Academy. It's at podcasteditoracademy.com/survey2023. We're going to have those available tomorrow. Right now, if you want to get those via email, you're going to say something, Mark?
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something. If you want to get those via email, I'm going to put those in the newsletter. So you can go to podcasteditoracademy.com/newsletter. It gives you the email series that we put out there for people in the industry, people who want to know more about podcast editing. In fact, just today I sent out one. Every month I do what I call the monthly money mindset moment, even though it's like an 18-page email. Just give money tips, personal finance. That's my background, so I always throw a little bit of those in there once a month. And of course, we've got some really cool live events coming up. I'm going to put them up on the screen, Mark.
Let's
go ahead.
some of these questions. So, for example, this person asked it was in reference to. Oh, put the screen back on. Get us up here. Let's do this thing. There we go. Get my face off of there. So Facebook user asked, this assumes they're only working 40 hours a week. I imagine some freelancers are spending more than that. And it's always good to imagine and ask the questions of the data. Luckily, we were able to. So it may be more of a 10 to 50 or 10 to 60 ratio. For example, this year, it's 183 minutes for a 60-minute recording. So for you, the population, the ratio is 3 to 1. You spend about 3 hours of effort for every 1 hour of audio.
Which, might I add, that's at least 1 hour faster than the average person is doing themselves.
When I started, I spent 8 hours on a 30-minute show.
Did you charge $1,200?
It was my own show. It was my own show. And see, and that's before I started, feeling confident in my skills. Of course, I got better at it and everything. And this was a decade ago. The tools weren't as advanced as they are now. But I think that was probably for the first dozen or so episodes. And then I got better at it.
Yeah.
But, I certainly didn't have the experience back then that the Podcast Editor Club does right now, those that surveyed. So they're doing 3-to-1. I think that's really great. And you're right, Steve. I think I've seen in some other podcasting groups, the ratio is about 4-to-1.
Mm-hmm. That's what they say. Yeah.
Yep.
Did you have other questions in there you wanted to go over?
I tell you what, if you want to look through any of those other questions, I know we're about 30 minutes in. I just want to make sure that those that joined us live get the benefit of having their questions answered live.
I think some of them were already answered, so that's why I kind of skipped out of it because we already covered a lot of those.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I thought I saw a few in there. I was like, "Ooh, that's one that popped out to me." Okay.
Now did we answer this one? What is the average time spent for 30? Oh, we can't answer that one. I guess you take everything and divide it by 2.
Yeah.
But then I don't think that's accurate either because there's the tooling up process of like I have a base rate. I will not go below that base rate for anything more than 1 minute of audio, and then I ratchet it up from there. And it's kind of like I like using the example of if you were to be printing T-shirts for people, there is a time consumption cost on your part to get the machines set up, to get the design ready.
The variable cost,
yeah, and then you do that first T-shirt, and it's $50. But if you do 10 of them, maybe now they're $40. But if you do 50 of them, obviously the actual doing of the extra shirts, each one becomes a little less expensive, and that's kind of the way I describe. 30 versus 60, yeah, you're going to earn less on 30, but it's not going to be exactly half of what the survey has given us the results for.
True. And it could also be, and there's like setting up your workspace, right? Maybe you spend 5 minutes to do that, whether it's a 30-minute show or a 3-hour show. Or maybe the variable component of what seems like fixed overhead is really the number of tracks. If you're doing a panel recording where you got 5 people on, that's probably going to take a while to set up all the tracks and get everything in and make sure that you've got everything labeled correctly before you actually go and edit through there. So there's a lot.
Yeah, I think about all the time where I'm checking email, I'm going to Dropbox or Google Drive, I'm grabbing the files, I'm downloading into my computer. Sometimes they give me video and I'm supposed to pull the audio from it. Those files are bigger. It's going to take longer. So those are costs. Those are that are going to fit into my base rate. And I charge either a flat rate for doing the job or a per episode rate based on the number of minutes they send me, not number of minutes that I spend working on the job. It's not like I'm punching a clock type of pay thing. So I have that cost baked in to my fees. And I think so Brian says you're exactly right. There's a time requirement to manage the files and fire up the DAW that doesn't go away regardless of show duration. It's the whole fixed cost versus variable conversation. Absolutely.
Yep.
Cool. Wow, excellent. Mark, this is great. Thank you so much for...
Oh, you're welcome. I know you have some things to share with us, right, Steve?
Yes, I do. I'm really excited to say it's been a while since we did some live streams, and I miss them. I'm going to be ramping those up again here in the next coming couple of weeks. Let me show you one of them if I can get my things to work right. Next week on Monday, we have the Heather Zeitzwolf joining us for a live stream just like this in the Podcast Editors Club Facebook group or on YouTube, talking about income taxes, being prepared at the end of this year for filing our taxes in 2024, making sure that we are prepared for that. And if you know Heather, it's going to be a blast. In fact, she's keynoting at PodFest in January, which I think is really cool. We also have on Friday the 15th at 3 p.m. the holiday party. Yeah, I love it when we just get together and hang out. That's all we do. We just get together, hang out. Sometimes we talk about editing. I remember one year we were talking about guitars and drum sets. Not me, but everybody else. And I just actually what's funny is a couple of times we've done these live streams, the girls talk about football. And I'm just like lost. But the girls do. I'm like, that's fantastic. So come join us on those dates. And if you can, if you're getting the emails on the newsletter, that's how you're going to get the links. And of course, for those of you who signed up for the live stream reminders, you'll be getting an email just before each one of those starts, so you don't forget to join us. All right.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the holiday party. It's the one time a year. I know we've got our office hour calls, live office hour calls for the Academy members and other ways to engage with folks in the Academy, because it's hard to scale that up to the 8,700 or what are we up to? 8,800 people now in the Podcast Editors Club?
Almost.
A lot.
We're close.
That being said, the holiday parties are one time a year. Like, all right, let's open up the doors for everybody. We wear some ugly sweaters. Steve always has a candy cane.
I already have it. See that?
Yep.
Taste the rainbow. Yeah. So thanks for joining us tonight. Again, if you want to get the slides, make sure you're on the newsletter. Or if you're interested, we've got a nice little download that is available to you if you want to learn 10 ways to find clients. These are the ways you can market yourself to find clients where they are. And you can find, out of 10, you should be able to find at least a couple that kind of fit what you like to do. You don't have to go out and actually go to meetings, but then that might be the place where you're the strongest. I push myself to be strong at in-person type things. Or maybe you just want to do social media. This will give you a nice little starting point to let you focus on, put your efforts where it will be most useful so you're not wasting your time spinning your wheels. Go to podcasteditoracademy.com/10 ways. That's number 10 WAYS and sign up there. Sweet. Mark, thanks for doing all this. I always love doing this with you every single year.
It's always enlightening every year to go in and find out what's happening. And there's recurring themes I've noticed for every year. Now, again, we didn't do the regression analysis, but before it's always said, hey, those that coach make more than those that don't because they're actually helping their clients. But I think with the way that you presented some of the questions and certainly some of those answers, Steve, and you did it in such a way to where the survey took less than 5 minutes this year. I know before we've asked a ton of questions, and a lot of those we would ask the statistics to find out, hey, what is significant in influencing the rate. This year we made it simpler. So we didn't ask all those questions, but then we lost some of that insight. But with the extra services thing that you offered, or asked, I should say, it was enlightening. For example, like the guest interview booking and those other things we shared earlier. And get you to think, should I offer more of those, or should I sound more like the people that offer those? What do they sound like? How can I sound more like that? And therefore increase my rate, effective hourly rate.
Yeah. And inside the Podcast Editor Academy, we'll be focusing more efforts on teaching those types of things. So stay tuned there as well.
Stay tuned.
Yep. And beyond the newsletter, or get on the email list, something like that. That way you don't miss all the things that we're doing. Thank you all for joining us. This has been another fantastic year in podcast editor industry.